Before the sun rose over the village of Esperanza, the winds howled with the memory of what had been lost: laughter, community, the warmth of hearth and home. In the valleys where children once chased fireflies and elders shared stories beneath starlit skies, silence had crept in slowly, like a shadow that swallows light. The air was thick with longing, weighted down by unspoken prayers. Mothers clasped their hands in whispered invocation, fathers knelt beside empty doorframes, and the young looked toward the horizon with eyes that bore both hope and heartbreak. They called it El Valle de las Sombras, the Valley of Shadows, though no one could recall the day it slipped from being Esperanza to becoming a place haunted by its own name. In that valley lived Marisol, a woman whose voice was once known for its crystalline laughter, whose step once echoed with confidence. But after years of drought and loss, her once bright eyes dimmed, her laughter became a memory, and she carried with her a heart heavy with the burden of unanswered prayers. Every evening she stood on the ridge overlooking the village, her gaze fixed on the breaking dawn that never seemed to come. With arms outstretched toward the sky, she whispered into the breeze, "Sálvanos," not just as a plea, but as a declaration of faith that refused to be extinguished. Though her voice cracked and her knees bore the scars of countless kneelings on unforgiving stone, she held on to that one word with every fiber of her being because she believed that somewhere, beyond the silence, there stirred a promise of rescue and renewal. Villagers spoke in hushed tones of old stories, tales of ancestors who had weathered storms of famine, war, and despair, yet always found a way to rise again. They spoke of passing down seeds, seeds of corn, of flowers, of fruit trees, which were said to carry not just life, but faith itself in their dormant form. Some said that to plant a seed was to plant courage, that each sprouting leaf was a testament to perseverance. Yet the fields around them lay barren, the earth cracked like the lines of worry upon every elder's brow. Night after night, the same stars watched over the valley, and night after night, Marisol's cry for salvation pierced the blanket of darkness. One night, as she rested against the cool earth, worn from struggle, a stranger came, cloaked in white, his presence a soft glow against the dimness. The villagers stirred at his approach, fear mixed with a flicker of hope. Some whispered that he was a mirage of desperation, others dared to think he was an answer to their cries. The stranger walked toward Marisol without hesitation, his gaze steady and kind. When he spoke, his voice rolled like distant thunder yet carried the gentleness of spring rain. "Traigo contigo una semilla, para plantar en tus manos, en tu esperanza, en tu fe." Confusion danced across the faces before him, but Marisol felt a warmth spread in her chest, like the first ember of a fire long thought extinguished. The villagers gathered around as he placed the small seed in Marisol's trembling palm. It was no ordinary seed, iridescent, vibrant, holding a pulse as though it contained a heartbeat of its own. The stranger's eyes glistened with quiet certainty as he said, "Esta semilla crecerá donde otros han perdido la fe. Aquí, donde la esperanza yace dormida, tu corazón la despertará. Planta amor aquí, planta fe, planta vida." Though doubt clung to some like a second skin, a stillness fell over the crowd, a stillness that felt less like silence and more like the calm before an awakening. Marisol, with reverence both humble and fierce, knelt and pressed the seed into the heart of the valley's soil. In that moment, a collective breath seemed to release from every soul present, as though the very earth sighed with relief. Days passed, and while some watched with restless anticipation, others murmured that nothing would come of it. But in the quiet hours before dawn, a tender green sprout broke through the parched earth. Word of the sprout spread like wildfire through the village. People gathered, some with hope, some with skepticism, others simply in wonder. Little by little, the barren earth began to soften, not just physically but spiritually. Hearts that once bore scars of despair felt a flicker of light. Mothers whispered prayers of gratitude, fathers straightened with new resolve, and children, oh, the children, their laughter began to return like the sunrise after a long night. The small sprout, fragile and unassuming, became the symbol of something far greater, that even in the darkest of places, where voices have fallen silent and hope almost vanished, a single planted seed could be the spark that rekindles all life. And so the valley stirred, its people daring once again to believe in dawn, because from one humble seed grew a promise that no night could overcome. If you feel this power of hope rising in you too, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because together, we plant seeds that grow into miracles. The sprout in the valley had become something more than plant, it became a symbol of what could not be spoken with ordinary words. Children skipped toward school again, their voices rising like sweet notes in the morning breeze. Elders stood taller, their eyes reflecting not the weight of what was lost, but the light of what might yet be gained. Even the wind carried a different song, one of possibility, of revival, of awakening. Yet, with every turning season, the villagers began to realize that the seed's power did not lie only in its growth, but in what it inspired within their hearts. Marisol walked among her people, offering not miracles but encouragement, reminding them that the seed was just the beginning, and that the true transformation needed to begin within each soul. She told them, La semilla crece cuando la alimentamos con fe, amor y acción. Porque no basta con un milagro si no estamos dispuestos a hacer la tierra fértil donde crece. Some understood immediately, others struggled, clinging to their old fears like stubborn vines. But gradually, change spread through the village, not just in the fields, but in every home, every hearth, every heart. Fathers worked the soil with renewed purpose at dawn and at dusk, mothers shared seeds and knowledge with distant neighbors, and children tilled the earth with laughter echoing like bells of hope. Crops began to grow where once only dust lay. Water flowed with renewed abundance in the streams, singing over smooth stones as though celebrating life itself. The valley was no longer a name of sorrow, but a place of promise, reverently renamed Esperanza once again. Stories of the seed spread beyond the valley's edge, carried by merchants, travelers, and birds of passage. Some came to see the miraculous fields, others came seeking a fragment of the hope they had heard whispered on the winds. Among them walked a weary traveler named Raphael, whose eyes once held the tired dullness of someone who had journeyed too long through hardship. When he first arrived, he saw the green fields, the joyful children, and the strong faces of the grateful, but something deeper stirred in him, a longing for his own planted seed. He sought Marisol's counsel on the ridge where she first cried for salvation. With humility that felt like a new breath, Raphael confessed his fears and his weariness. He had wandered through barren lands of rejection, of dreams unfulfilled, of faith tested to its limits. He asked, ¿Cómo puedo plantar mi semilla si mi tierra interior ha estado seca durante tanto tiempo? Marisol reached out and touched his shoulder with gentle assurance. She said, La tierra interior más arida puede volverse fértil con una sola verdad, que no está solo. Aquí hemos sembrado esperanza, no porque no hayamos enfrentado sequía, sino porque en cada sequía elegimos seguir plantando. In that moment, something shifted within Raphael, as though the words themselves were rain upon his parched spirit. He knelt beside the earth and planted his seed, not just a seed of crop, but a seed of intention, of resolve to cultivate courage within himself and carry that courage to others. Time passed, as time always does, and the people of Esperanza realized that they were not merely witnesses of a miracle, they were the miracle itself. Their unity, their care for one another, their choice to continue sowing despite hardship, these became their true legacy. The valley was healing, thriving, alive, but it was the transformation of hearts that was the greatest harvest of all. One day, as the sun stretched its golden arms across fields of green and blue skies smiled upon the village, Marisol stood once more on the ridge. But this time, it was not with burden, it was with gratitude. She beckoned the villagers to stand with her, looking out toward the horizon that once seemed unreachable. She spoke words that felt like a benediction and a commission. Si has sentido tu corazón transformarse, si tu espíritu ha encontrado nueva fuerza, si tu visión ha despertado a la realidad del poder que yace en ti, entonces te invitamos a seguir este viaje con nosotros. Planta tu semilla dondequiera que vayas. Cultiva esperanza. Why no olvide suscribir a este canal para ser parte de una comunidad que siembra vida y cosecha milagros cada día. And as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting glowing hues over fields that once knew only sorrow, the heart of Esperanza beat steadily, not because of a single seed, but because every soul chose to plant again and again. Subscribe now, join our journey, and let's plant seeds of hope everywhere we go.